श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। So we were looking at verse number 5 and 6. So verse number 5, Shankaracharya says, Yavat vitto vitta uparjana saktaha tavat nija parivaraha raktaha. Paschat jivati jarjara dehe vartam kopina prichati gehe. So the essence, we saw this verse in the last class also. So what is conveyed in this verse is that all associations are inherently selfish in nature. So people love others only because of some kind of a selfish need. I mean, this may sound very harsh, but fundamentally that is what it is. So as I also referred to the section in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where Yajnavalkya tells Maitreyi that a husband loves a wife only for the sake of himself. A wife loves a husband only for the sake of herself. A father loves his son only for the sake of himself, and vice versa. A son loves the father primarily for a selfish reason. So this is the truth of all relationships. We all know that. But when someone explicitly and bluntly says this, then it seems a little hurtful. But this is just to keep relationships in perspective. Not go overboard on this relationship towards someone, thinking that this is something beyond a physical relationship. See, that is how it is presented in movies also. So some a person likes another person. So then it is presented as though it is some kind of extraordinary relationship, out of the world relationship. But it is all fundamentally selfish in nature. So because it doesn't last forever, so one does not love another person the same way all the time. So when there is, you have to do a lot for the other person, then automatically it becomes a burden over a period of time. So the love also reduces, because any burden over time, that is difficult to handle. That's what Shankaracharya says. Even the closest relationships, like family, so those relationships are also inherently selfish. And as long as one is productive, one is contributing in some way, then people show love and respect for that person. And once the person's contribution reduces, then it is natural in the world for the respect towards that person to reduce also. So, yavat vitta uparjana saktaha, as long as one is capable of earning, providing for the family, or contributing in some way, tavat nija parivaraha raktaha, then everyone is very tightly attached to that person. Paschat जीवति जर्जर देहे वार्ताम कोपि न पृच्छति गेहे. So after one becomes old and weak, then there is no one to even inquire about the welfare of that person. Vartam. So the same person whom you have showered so much love, so that person doesn't even care to inquire about how you are doing. So is this what you are struggling for? Is it all worth it? So keeping family relationships and other relationships in perspective, because some people talk about soulmate, a perfect match. So match made in heaven. All that is complete nonsense according to Shankaracharya. So there is nothing like that. So we are only going to be disappointed if we look for that kind of a perfect connection. But if we objectively look at it, that doesn't mean you should not love anyone else. See, we don't have to keep oscillating between two extremes. When someone says that relationships are inherently selfish, it doesn't mean that you should not love anyone or you should not care for anyone. That is not what it means. It means that you don't create any dependency on that relationship for any kind of reciprocated love. So, because when you love someone, then you expect the other person also to reciprocate. So, you have it objective, then the expectation reduces, naturally reduces, and that is uh, that is better for our own sake. So, because we spend so much time nurturing relationships throughout our life, and here the question is it all worth it? I mean, focusing so much and um, expecting so much out of relationships, whatever it is, whether it is a friend or spouse or anyone for that matter. So you are only going to be left disappointed at a later time. Then he moves on, verse number 6. Same idea. So that is also conveyed in the next verse. So he says, Yavat pavano nivasati dehe tavat pruchati pushalam gehe gatavati vayau dehapaye harya bibhyati tasmin kaye bhaja govindam bhaja govindam govindam bhaja mudhamate संप्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले नहीं नहीं रक्षति डुक्कृन्. So, and here he says that this relationships are also centered on identification with the body, physical body. So yavat pavanaha nivasati dehe. As long as there is life in the body, tavat prichati kushalam gehe. Until then, people inquire about how you're doing. Gatavati vayau deha paye. When life goes out of the body, bharya bibhyati tasmin kaye. So even a wife is scared of being with a dead body. So when someone says that my love for this person transcends the physical body, like sometimes we like to believe that my love for someone transcends the physical body. So then you should also be able to handle the dead body. So when the body is dead, you just want to dispose of. So do you have the same love for that person? It may be there, but still it can last only as long as the body is alive. Beyond that, it is not even possible to have a relationship. And we don't know how long we will be around also. So all the love that we are talking about, pure love, perfect love, all of that, Shankaracharya says, is centered on the body. Because it is not this love for, of one human being for another. It is physical in nature. It is fundamentally physical in nature. So it cannot transcend the physical component. So don't be obsessed with the physical person. And as long as the relationship is there, use the relationship for the benefit of both the parties. Like I was talking in the last class also. Fundamentally, we are related to other people primarily to settle our karmic accounts. That is why the cosmic forces put us together. Bhagavan puts us together, if you want to say it in another way. For us to be able to grow, grow emotionally. So the relationships are meant for both the parties to grow and become more mature. Relationships are not meant to just be limited to the level of this physical love for each other. So as long as a relationship fulfills that purpose. So for me to settle my karmic account, because we have been connected from before. See, when there are people who are very closely connected to us, then it only means that we have been connected to these people in an earlier lifetime. That is very, 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 that is a fact. So we are just continuing that bond that we have created with each other. And in this lifetime, it is better we use that relationship to become more mature as persons. Because the bond may be something that is left unfinished from a previous lifetime. Otherwise, you are never bound to anyone. No one really likes being bound to anyone. That is a fundamental truth of one's life. See, we think relationships are good. So we need relationships. I cannot survive without relationships. But when you really look at it and inquire into it, no one really likes to be bound to anyone else. So someone may say, I love my wife till the end of the world. Someone can say that. But in reality, in truth, we all like freedom. We don't like to be bound to anyone. So that is the inherent bubbling desire of every human being, that desire for freedom. And extended all the way, it is called moksha. And relationships are binding in nature. All relationships are binding in nature. So the idea is to always grow out of that bondage. See, even here, when we say we have to settle accounts, it doesn't mean breaking relationships. That is also not what it means. You can still be connected to that person, but giving the not without bondage, but giving more freedom to the other person. Allow the person to do whatever he or she wants, and still you can have love and care for that person. So this is a perfect relationship, not try to cling on to the person. So love is not trying to clinging on to anyone. Love is just setting free. And for that, we need to settle our accounts. So these are things Shankaracharya feels are better kept in mind, so that we use our time in this on this earth productively. Otherwise, if we don't understand relationships properly, then we spend so much time trying to cling on and trying to possess and be attached, and finally find that it was all a waste of time, not worth it. So, do we really want to spend so much time and then get this realization that it was not worth it? At 60, 65, you realize that it's not possible. If you're lucky, you will realize. If not, a person doesn't realize even at 60, 65. Because people get attached to their grandchildren and then great grandchildren. It keeps going on and on. So in India, it's a big job. People think it is their duty also. Babysitting grandchildren becomes a person's duty. They call it duty also. This is a perfect abuse of the word duty. So it is not the duty of a person to babysit grandchildren at all. It is because of one's own immaturity. Immaturity that you want to be attached to someone, otherwise one feels one feels inadequate. One doesn't feel complete. So you want to extend your lineage. So grandchildren, great grandchildren, and then go on and on and on. And then some people proudly declare. So 3 months I spent with my son's children, and then 3 months I spent with my daughter's children. So this is how the people keep going round. But Shankaracharya says life is meant for something better. So when you're old, that is exactly the lifestyle prescribed by the Veda. So you have brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha. So people have to, vanaprastha also is a part of one's lifestyle. So the scriptures say that once the son has a child, then the parents have to move away, stay separately. And husband and wife can spend all time on spiritual pursuit. So that is how a life of vanaprastha is. So all that is also indicated by saying this. So don't limit yourself to just these physical relationships. So relationships are good, relationships are helpful, but use them for one's own emotional maturity and spiritual growth, and for settling accounts and being freed from the karmic bondage. So that is what he says. Bharya bhibhyati. So it is said in a very blunt way. Bharya. So after your death, even your wife is scared of your dead body. That means relationships are have their limitations. That's what is meant here. But again, so here we are not trying to criticize all relationships. We are just trying to objectively see the value of relationships, or see the usefulness of relationships. Then we'll move to the next verse. Verse number 7. बालस्तावत् क्रीडासक्तः तरुणस्तावत् तरुणीसक्तः वृद्धस्तावत् चिन्तासक्तः परमे ब्रह्मणि कोऽपि न सक्तः. So here he points out how time just passes by without really focusing on the most important thing to do in one's life. So balastavat kridasakta. So we all have a childhood. And then the childhood passes by in playing before you go to school. So in Europe, I found that when I went there, so in India, school is, there is a lot of pressure in schools. So you have, I mean, it is very intense. So academically intense. But in Europe, I found that kids, they very proudly declare. When you ask them, what do you do in school? So kids say, I play football. So next day, what do you do in school? Again, I played football. And there is absolutely no guilt whatsoever. So very happily they declare. It's a good thing. I mean, schools also should be like that without any pressure. So they should encourage children to be themselves and have enough time for play. So I'm sure they're also teaching something. But almost the whole of school life, at least till 7th grade, 8th grade. So it just goes in just playing. And not even much importance, too much importance is given to academics till then. Even writing, they don't push much. So a 10-year-old kid, so struggles to even write. So, but kids are intelligent. I'm not really, I mean, saying that they are not intelligent. Kids are really intelligent. They kindle that ability to self-learn, and so they know how to learn, which is the most important thing. But in a playful way. But what I'm saying is, Shankaracharya here says that whole of childhood that goes primarily in playing and studying a little bit, so gaining some knowledge of something. And then tarunastavat taruni sakta. So then one becomes a youth. So 15, 16, 17, 18. Then this natural attraction for the opposite gender, that starts, which is natural, perfectly natural. So when a person is from 16, 17 till about 30 or so, youth, if you want to call that youth, then there is so much of one's mental space is occupied by thinking about the opposite gender. So first, how to find a partner. See, in India earlier, when we were growing up, then this concept of having a boyfriend or a girlfriend was not very prevalent. So in the 80s, I'm talking about. But now it looks like some kind of a disqualification if you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. So even in India, so who's your partner? People ask. So whole time, and then if you have a partner, then you have to satisfy the other person, both sides. So there is so much time spent on just trying to make the other person happy. So tarunastavat taruni sakta. Vriddhastavat chinta sakta. When you grow older, then inevitably most human beings, unless the person is really wise, so most human beings have some worries, maybe about one's own health, or worry about one's children, worry about something or the other. So we are always worrying about something or the other. Why is the world like this? So where are we heading? So there are wars going on everywhere. So Ukraine, Russia, it doesn't seem to end. And America doesn't want it to end because they want to stimulate their own arms industry. So they will never allow the Ukraine-Russia war to end. So recently I was reading a report which said that the biggest beneficiaries of the Ukraine-American war are the American arms industry. American and European also. They are the biggest beneficiaries. So if there is no war, then they will go into recession. This industry at least will go into recession. Because they need some place to throw their bombs around and then create jobs. That is how our economics is. So creating jobs somehow or the other. Even if it means killing some people, it doesn't matter, but you have to create jobs. So that is how the economic framework is. So you're worrying about something or the other. Why is the world like this? And then in your country, so why is the ruling dispensation? Why are they not doing this? So there is always opportunity for something or the other. So you spend most of your time worrying. Vriddhastavat chinta sakta. See, this we have to inquire. See, we have to look at ourselves and then see how it is true even in each of our cases. Whole of childhood we have spent in having fun, playing and having fun. Youth, thinking about the other gender, lot of time. And then old age, if you are still not there, then you will get there. So old age, you worry about something or the other, either your family, your relatives, or society, country, something or the other, you will worry. And then he says, Parame Brahmani Kopina Sakta. But no one is really spending time on what you really need to spend time on. Parame Brahmani. On contemplating on the absolute reality. This is just to make us aware that are we used to think and inquire whether we are using our time productively. So as I said earlier also, nothing in life you retain with you except your own wisdom that you have gained, spiritual knowledge you have gained. Everything else evaporates. Wealth evaporates. Even if it is there, you can't do anything with it beyond a certain point. So you can only spend so much. And your accomplishments also evaporate. Because if it is done, if it is accomplished, then it is over, you move on to something else. It is just purely in your own mental space that you are happy, you are proud about what you have accomplished. The only thing that you retain and hold on without losing it is one's own wisdom that one has gained. And if you have gained that, then even if you want to, you cannot lose it. Suppose you have spent a lot of time gaining spiritual knowledge, and then suddenly decide that I want to become the old person that I was 15 years back before I started it. It is impossible. You cannot. So you cannot go back. So everything else evaporates. This alone stays with you, and Lord Krishna promises that this will stay with you in your next lifetime also. You will pick up from where you left. Family doesn't come with you. Once you are dead, family doesn't come with you. You have to leave and go. And then relationships don't come. Money doesn't go with you. And your wealth, your accomplishments, power, nothing goes with you. And only the knowledge that you have gained, the wisdom that you have gained, that goes along with you from lifetime to lifetime. That is what Shankaracharya points out here. Parame Brahmani Kopina Sakta. Why are you wasting your time on all these useless pursuits, meaningless pursuits? So first he criticized wealth, then he criticized the attraction for the opposite gender. Then he criticized spending a disproportionate amount of time on relationships. That also he criticized. And then now he talks about various stages of life where we are doing so many things, but still not inquiring into what really needs to be inquired. And he is lamenting here. So why are you doing this? Looking at that old man, apparently. The old man is just a trigger. So not necessarily just the old man, but the person was just a trigger for Shankaracharya to lament and to give this advice. Parame Brahmani Opina Sattaha. So there is one verse, as I was mentioning today morning also in the class, by Bhartrhari. So that verse, I'll give you just the gist of that verse. It's from a text called Vairagya Shatakam, another text. So he says, I mean, same idea is conveyed in a different way. So the sun rises and sets every day. And then you get older. Every day you get one day older. And then you are caught up in so many responsibilities, so many activities. And life just passes by. And then you see people growing old and then people dying. And people suffering because of disease. But still, you don't ponder over how I should spend my time usefully. You think it will not happen to me, I will be okay. And I can look at this whole spirituality thing at a later point in my life. So no one comes with a warranty card that you will be around for 70 years or 80 years or 90 years. So that is what he also points out. And he says that the whole world is drunk with this intoxication of delusion, intoxicating delusion, intoxicating madness. Whole world. So you're just running after something or the other. People want to be busy. People like to be busy. But what do you get out of just recklessly running here and there? People don't think about that. But people like to call themselves busy. I don't have any time. People like to say that. But for what purpose? Because just doing something or the other only means that you cannot face yourself. That is what it means. A person who is helplessly busy is a person who wants to be continuously distracted because you cannot face yourself. Just ask that person to sit quiet for a few moments. That person will not be able to sit because you don't, your mind is always going outward, something or the other. So here it is a completely different way of looking at oneself. Not external accomplishments become secondary to inner growth. So accomplishments are not the primary goal. So inner growth is the primary goal. Turning inward is the primary goal. Now we'll move to the next verse. In this verse, he points out how this inquiry should take place. Verse number 8. Kate kanta kaste putraha samsaroyamativa vichitraha kasya tvam kuta ayataha kasya तत्त्वं कः कुत आयातः तत्त्वं चिन्तय तदिह भ्रातः. So earlier he said, don't give excessive, unnecessary importance to relationships more than what is necessary. Now he is also extending on that idea. So kate kanta kaste putraha. So kate kanta. Kate kanta means who's your wife? Kaste putraha. And then who's your son? Samsaraha ayam ativa vichitra. So this samsara is extremely flabbergasting. Vichitra means extremely interesting. See, because the idea is you call someone your wife, okay? But really you inquire into what makes up the person who you call your wife, one's wife. That person is a human being. She is a lady. And then all ladies, the physical, the framework is the same. Makeup is the same. The appearance slightly differs. No one denies that. And but so a lady has as a certain physical makeup. And you could just be calling that person just a lady and be objective to that person. But when you give a specific name for that relationship, then you are superimposing so many other things onto that simple person. So, person who is like anyone else. So, first you say, my wife. And this relationship was not there even before you got married. Before that, she was some other person, you were a different person. So this is something that is a human creation, created by the human being. And then once you create that relationship, it is a mental superimposition on a normal person who is like anyone else. And then you call that person your wife. And start having expectations. You start having demands. And because of that, you start having issues. So, human beings are suffering primarily because of that extra layer they have created by themselves. If you look at that person just as another normal human being, whether it is a wife or it is a mother or it is a sister or it is someone else outside, some woman, they are all human beings, they have the same status. But the wife status or son status or daughter status, that is purely a human creation. It is not to say that You should not differentiate. Tomorrow you cannot behave with your wife like you behave with someone else. Or behave with someone else like you behave with your wife. You cannot do that. But what is conveyed here is it is a purely transactional association. Just for transaction. Like even in a movie, a role. You play in an actor plays in a movie. You play a role and then you move on. You don't take that role to be real. Because that role is going to last only for a short duration. So relationships also, they are like a role you are playing. So don't become excessively obsessed with relationships. This is something that I have created. So this is called, this is a human creation. So there is an objective world and there is what we superimpose on the objective world. And we just tend to conclude that our superimposition gives us pleasure, gives us joy. I want a wife. I want someone whom I can call as my wife. I want someone whom I can call as my son. That possessiveness, that seems to give pleasure, but actually doesn't. That is only bondage. So wanting to cling on to someone, that is complete bondage. So that's what he's saying. Just inquire into what is the reality of any of your relationships. Is it objectively true, or is it my own subjective creation? So in Vedanta, spiritual progress is in terms of trying to reduce subjectivity as much as possible. So the less subjective you are, the more freedom you have. Less subjective means more objective. Then you have more freedom. Otherwise, it becomes binding. It becomes a bondage. But still, at the same time, you have to do what you have to do. So if you have created a relationship, formed a relationship, then you have to do. But then do it with a detached attitude. That is what is indicated by this verse. And this attachment can be for a wife, for a son, kate kanta, kaste putraha. Ayam samsaraha ativa vichitraha. So this samsara means this world, human world, ativa vichitraha. It is extremely fascinating or extremely interesting. Kasyatvam kuta ayataha. So kasyatvam. So whom do you belong to? Of whom are you? Kuta ayataha. Where have you come from? So do I belong to anyone? And where have I come from? So when you start pondering over these questions, then you really start thinking about karma. So then you understand that this is not the only lifetime I'm living. So I have come from somewhere. My earlier karma is making me what I am now. And then if I'm suffering, like for some reason or the other, then that will make me think as to what did I do so I'm made to suffer in this lifetime. And so that I don't repeat the same mistake. So I utilize this lifetime at least properly. Earlier lifetime, I have frittered away, wasted it, and committed mistakes. At least this lifetime, I should not do the same thing. So this kind of questioning will help you take charge of yourself. Otherwise, we if we don't inquire, then we take it for granted. So we take whatever we are now for granted and don't try to look at the bigger picture. So we are just focused and restricted to what we have in front of us. If everything is going well, then we continue to extend it, prolong it for as long as possible. So there is no inquiry into what is the purpose of all of this. That is why this Bhaja Govindam is a good basic text. It gives you an idea of how you should spend your time. What are the helpful ways to spend your time and what are all wasteful activities. So when someone asks this question, then naturally one will have to come to Vedanta because you don't get answers anywhere else. Someone asks, Kate Kanta Kaste Putra. So on your own, you won't be able to give an answer. Who's your wife? That person can only say that this is my wife. So, but to look at the deeper meaning, then you have to come to Vedanta for contemplating on all this. Or you're just restricting yourself to the physical level. You don't even ask these questions. Okay, this person is my wife, and that is how it is. No questions asked. So, spirituality here means that one should, have a very questioning mind, inquiring mind, not just a questioning mind, inquiring. Because some people ask questions and don't even have the patience to stay back for the answer. So that is a questioning mind. But when it's an inquiring mind, then you also are interested in the answer. Because some people just ask questions. They don't wait for answers. So there are people like that. So some people ask also. In the class, can I ask questions in between? So why should I not ask questions in between? So you are not even patient enough to listen for some time. You just ask question and immediately want an answer. So but that is not what is required. An inquiring mind asks these questions. And generally these questions people ask when you are faced with some difficulty or the other, and everything is going well, then you don't feel the need to even ask these questions. And everyone has some difficulty, because you don't become spiritual when everything is perfect in your life. Everything is not perfect in anyone's life. But if at all it is, even the Upanishad talks about it. So if at all it is perfect, then the person will have no reason for spirituality or no room for spirituality. But the next level is, even if you're faced with difficulty, you need to have that grace to ask the right questions. Because people have difficulty, but they don't ask the right questions. They remain in samsara. And try to somehow overcome the troubles and difficulties. So what the Shastra says is that you will never overcome all difficulties completely. Because as long as you are a human being, it will be a mixture. So good and bad, pain and pleasure, it will be a mixture. So hoping for a perfect life is utopia. Can never happen. Is an utopian dream. So, but even if you're faced with difficulties, one will have to ask the right questions. So Shankaracharya says here, ask the right questions and then get the answers. Get the answers from the right place. So ask the right questions to the right person. That's why questions like Kate Kanta Kaste Putraha Samsaraha Ayam Ativa Vichitra. So this samsara is extremely interesting, because this is something that I have created on my own ignorance. My own avidya has created it. My own superimposition, adhyasa. Atasmin tadbuddhi. So that adhyasa has created it. Superimposing on something on that which does not have these attributes. So wife does not have it written on her head that I am a wife. Because she becomes a wife to someone, she becomes a mother to someone else, and then she becomes a daughter to someone else. So I have made her my wife. For me, she is a wife, but it is not, it does not completely define her. So inquire into that. What completely defines a person? And then son. So he can be your son, but he is someone else's father or someone else's friend or someone else's student. So son is just a transactional relationship. So what more are they? So if it is not just a son, then what is the truth? Then when you inquire, then you find that the truth is just that consciousness that keeps the person alive. So that is the truth of every person. And wife, son, daughter, mother, husband, all of that is only a superimposition, temporary transactional superimposition. So inquire into the truth. That is the idea. So we'll stop here and continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.